Okay, hey guys. My name is Alexander, and today I'm gonna be talking about testing in IdentityIQ. Actually, when we all love that, you know, the testing is probably everybody's favorite, but the testing that happens is not something that we do at the very end. When you think about it, when we do development, we actually go over this loop. We do some coding, then we deploy it to IIQ, and then we run a little bit of tests to see if what we wrote so far is working. And then when that is okay, we move on. And basically, every time we make some changes, we add new functionality, we have to start from scratch. So we have to prepare the data. So let's imagine we have a situation. The example I have prepared today is basically around requesting access. The example is very simple. There's going to be an identity. We're going to request access. We're going to request a role, and that role is going to be approved and then provisioned. Very simple. Now imagine if we're developing this workflow. I know it's an out-of-the-box one, but let's say we're customizing it. And so once we request that, there's an access request pending approval. And when we want to retest that, then we have to upload that, do something to that identity so it doesn't have that access. We want to start the test. So the more complicated customization, the more complicated the test preparation. So basically, this is the whole idea. The whole idea about ITF, IIQ testing framework, is to help with that. I originally basically wrote this for myself. I was sick and tired of manually updating the XMLs and manually making sure that identity does or does not have a certain role. So the concept is pretty simple. Every single action you can do in IIQ, we basically automate. We change that into a command and put these commands together to create a test case. So when you run the test case, it's as if you automatically were doing all of these steps. And just before we get into the actual demonstration, let's have a quick look at the architecture. Again, it's a plugin. The architecture is very simple. The client side is pretty much any IDE. And this I'm using IntelliJ, and it's talking to the custom plugin that you simply deploy to IIQ. And that custom plugin is executing all of these commands on the server. There are, of course, other possibilities. There's other options how you can invoke the test cases, like for example JUnit. But this is for like CI/CD workflows where you need to automate stuff. So that's basically it. This is the very simple way of doing the architecture. So now, well, let's have a look at it, and let's see live in a demo. Okay. Okay, what we have here is just your regular IIQ installation. Nothing special. I have a few customizations, but overall this is just a fairly basic IIQ installation. And let's do the test case that that I told you about. And this is the test case. Well, like everything else in IIQ, it's expressed in XML. And the test case consists of few things that are important. First of all, you have a test case name. This is how you know that, which test case is coming. Most of the test cases I've been doing so far revolve around identities, right? So you specify the test identity for the test case, and then we have a series of test commands. Of course, I'll get into the details later, but first let's run the test case and just see what happens. So I run the test case, I switch to command line to observe the execution. Okay, the test finished. It says here that it finished okay. Now, let's look at the details, because I mean, I can print anything in a log file and it doesn't prove anything. So, first, let's look at the identity. Identity warehouse. Let's find Angela Bell. And like I said before, the test case is about Angela Bell requesting, in this case, a employee role, which employee role contains a group in an LDAP account, and it contains a group called employees. So fairly simple. And as we can see here, the test case finished, and Angela, she has both the role, and she's got the LDAP, and she's got all the entitlements that are expected to get. So now let's have a look at every one of these steps here of these test case. First of all, test identity. Well, as you can imagine, and you probably may be already doing that, when you have a test case, you want to have the test case identity, and that's what it is. This is your regular identity XML. And here's, this is IIQ, so this should be very familiar to you. And as you can see here, she has a bunch of attributes, a manager defined, and just one link. So basically what happens in ITF, when you specify a test identity, this XML gets uploaded to IIQ, and this is how you start the test case. Like I said before, it's very important in each test case to prepare the data for the test up front, and there's a lot of commands here that actually do this preparation. So before we do that, let's go step by step. There's a special command called break, which basically stops the execution of the command right at the very beginning. And the break just stops the execution. So let's run it. And let's observe in the log file what happens. Okay. Now let's go to IIQ and let's look at Angela Bell. Let's refresh. Well, the attributes are pretty much the same. She only has one application because the XML didn't have that second application. But she's still got the entitlements and everything else. What's wrong with that? I mean, in this XML, she doesn't have anything else. Well, as we all know, in IIQ stores data in various places. It's not just identity XML. That is why there's a clean command. It does a lot of things, but in this particular case, the clean command will delete all the workflow cases for Angela Bell. It will delete the access requests. It will delete entitlements. And there's a nice name to it. So let's run it again. Now, in the log file, we see that it progressed a little bit. So let's look at Angela Bell again. This time, there's no more roles, no more entitlements, and no LDAP application. So basically, we are ready. We are ready to make a request. Let's have a quick look at access requests. There is no request for Angela Bell. Very good. So we can move on our break command a little forward. So the next command is simulate provisioning, and basically, as the name suggests, it will turn on the simulation mode so that we're not doing actual provisioning. I will talk about it a little later because, of course, you can do real provisioning, but it's just so much easier to test it where we don't have to worry about the data in the target system. The next command after that is run workflow. And what does it do? I mean, obviously, it runs a workflow. But let's take a step back. What does it actually mean in IIQ when you make a request? Well, it actually means that you are running a workflow with a very specific provisioning plan. So if we look at the details of the run workflow command, the mystery gets revealed. Look at that. Here we have something very familiar to all of us, which is a provisioning plan with all the details. And the most interesting part really is this one, assigned roles, employee. So this is what we're requesting. And there's also a bunch of other attributes that, that are put into LCM provisioning when we make a request. So let's run it again. I mean, we can keep running and running it again, and it's going to start from scratch, and it's going to be clean environment every time. Okay, it finished. Let's go back. So nothing changed with Angela Bell so far, but if we look at the access requests, this time we have a request for Angela Bell. Let's look at the details of that request. And yes, we are requesting employee role, as if we actually did it in GUI. So, we don't have to do it manually every time. And that's, pretty cool. But right now we are waiting for an approval for Richard Jackson, who is a manager of Angela Bell. So the next command is check approvals. And basically what it does, the check approvals command does what it says. It checks the approval, and there's a decision item here, and we approve that. So it contains all the details about the approval item, and it contains information who the approver should be, who's the target, and ITF will look for a work item which meets all of these criteria. And if it finds it, it will approve it. So let's run it. Okay, it finished, and we're gonna go back here. So have a look at one interesting fact is look at the number, look at the request ID, 758. So let's request that page. So you see it deleted the previous one. So we always start from the beginning. Like if we want to, of course. I mean, we decide which clean commands to use, but basically in this particular case, we start from scratch every time. Now let's look at the details, and we see that yes, the manager did the approval, and now it's pending the role owner approval, as you can see by Ernst Wagner. Very good. So now the next step is approval, and guess what? the approver should be Ernst Wagner, and the approval item is pretty much the same as previously because we're really approving the same thing. So let's move the break command and run the test case again. Okay. So what happened now? We're kind of expecting that this was approved and everything was finished. And in fact, we have a request that is complete. Let's look at the details. The approvals are there. Beautiful. Now, because it finished, we want to have a look at the identity. And in fact, Angela Bell, this time, she already has the employee role. She already has the entitlement. And she already has an account that was created with specific group. Now, we would think that's the end of the test case. But what did we just do just a second ago? We were looking at it. We checked it manually. And this is automated testing framework. So we cannot just check ourselves. We have to also do the validation. And this is what validate result command does. So I'm going to remove that here, that break. And if I rerun the whole thing, it basically will do what it did before, except with the validation at the end. So instead of me going in and looking at those details, let's look at the validation command. And what it does, it looks for identity name Angela Bell and checks if she does have an employee role, if the LDAP account was created, and it checks all the details. But does it? I mean, is this actually working? Because so far we've seen everything correctly. So let's break some things, and let's just say that our expectation is that the group is called employees, I don't know, X. This is our expectation. That's what's supposed to be provisioned. Or some changes were made. So let's run it again and let's see what happens. Uh-oh, we have an exception. What does it say? I'm not sure if you can actually see it, but basically there's an exception, and it says that there's a group which is missing. The expected group is employees X, and the actual group is employees. So this is when the test fails. When the test fails, ITF throws an exception, and this is and very often it will actually tell you details of what the problem is, and this is how you know this is at this moment. You need to sit down basically and fix things. Like we broke it on purpose, but this is the general concept. So this is basically how ITF works. Now you may think the question is, okay, it looks pretty cool, but there's a lot of, if you open up all of this XML, you may say, okay, I mean, maybe this could be useful, but creating all of that XML is, again, time consuming. So instead of spending time preparing the data myself, I'm going to be spending time creating these XMLs. And that would be a valid statement. Normally, this is what would happen. But there's, I think, two things. First of all, you do spend some time creating this XML, but you only do it once. Once you're done, can you imagine if you created a test case for every single customization, or actually multiple test cases, because in the check approvals command you can just say decision deny, and that's a totally different test case. So instead, this is one thing. You create all of these test cases, and then every time you have a new version, every time you do a new release with new customization, you have a full set of regression tests. You can test everything from scratch every time, and basically you sleep better. So this is the first thing why this is useful. The second thing is it's very important. When I was creating this, it was very important for me that it's easy to use, right? So for example, this test command, this XML, it comes with DTD, right? So it tells you, all the commands that are available here. These commands have descriptions, so if you forget how a command works, so you can have a look at it. But there's a lot of helper tools around it. So let's have a quick look. How would creating that test case look like? So let's give it a try. I will create new test case. My new demo test case. Enter. And well, I don't have to type all of these things myself. I have a template here that is ready for me. So like I said before, the very first element of the test case in this particular situation is identity name. So I can right click here and insert test identity. So from the drop down, like this interface talks to your server, to IIQ, and then I can find Angela Bell. I can decide what attributes I wanna use. I want to include links. I want to include managers. I don't want to include roles. I don't want to include role assignments, but I want to include simulation. And I add that. As you can see here, there's a new file. So ITF downloaded Angela Bell's XML with all the details. So now I can see here that there's a LDAP link. I'll just remove it because this test case calls for a clean environment. Delete. I'm going to save that. The simulation is already there for me, so I don't have to type it in because I included that checkbox. And then I want to include clean commands, so I will select clean, and now I want to delete access request. Yes. I want to delete workflow cases. Yes. I want to delete identity endowment. Yes. And let's leave it for now. Okay? So we have a beginning of a new test case. Well, the same one, but let's quickly run it. And it finished. So as you can, if we look at Angela Bell again, we'll see that we're right at the beginning. So the next step would be to make a request, right? So the run workflow command. But we want to make sure that when we're making a request, we will do the request in exactly the same way as IdentityIQ GUI does. So, well, instead of doing this manually, let's do it in IIQ then. So I will come here, manage user access, search for that identity. Search for the role and make a request manually. Submit. So this one time, I want to do it manually because this is my test case. But here, right now, I can insert ITF element. There's a bunch of different ones here. And in this particular case, I want account request. And it does talk to IIQ and picks up identity requests on IIQ. And I can see here that Angela Bell's request is right here. Bam. It reads all the data submitted by IIQ itself. So you don't have to. Of course, you can do the initial one and then make changes to it. But you don't, it makes life so much easier. So now I can just save it and rerun it. And as you saw before, well, we'll see that, in access requests, we have an access request. And so on and so on. And the same thing goes for the next step, which is approvals. So I can right click here, insert ITF element, and connect and get approvals. There's a bunch of approvals, but I'm interested in this one. Click OK. And all I have to do is add a decision to approve. And then I would do the same thing for next one and the next one. And finally, I can really also insert the identity validation with all the details already filled out for Angela Bell. So there's a lot of these helper tools to make your life easy and to make it faster to create these test cases. Now, the tool, the ITF, is intended to be used by developers while they're developing the customizations for the IdentityIQ. But why stop there? Very often there are situations that when you still have to test IIQ manually. I mean, the users still may have to test. IIQ talks to API, so we don't actually do the clicking on the screen. So there's a small layer, the GUI part, which is not directly tested by IIQ, but we can help there also. So before we actually do the manual test, what we can do is we can, let's say, set up and prepare the data for the manual test using ITF. And this is the example. In this particular case, we have Rita Wheeler, and we just uploading Rita Wheeler XML, and we're assigning an employee role. And this is all we do. So you can right click here and save the test case to the server. And basically, if you go to IIQ, there's an option here in ITF. And you can select the test case, and you can basically even give it to the business people that are testing and tell them, hey, there's going to be a test case here. It's going to be called Setup Rita Wheeler Identity for Test. And you can run the test case from GUI. So every time you actually want to do the manual test, you can now do the manual test. And then if you make a mistake, you can come here and then execute the test case again. So this is basically how ITF works. I hope you like it. This is it. That's all I prepared for you guys today. And have a good rest of the conference. Thank you.